Welcome everyone. So in this video, I'm checking out the competency of Google's AI assistant for help as a study tool. And so I had another video where I had first made where I had it check dead weight loss with a positive externality and a negative externality. And maybe I'll link that up here. But a year ago or so, I'd made a what Google Bard knows about elasticity video or something along those lines. And so anyway, I wanted to try this for elasticity again, this now updated version. I think this is the version. I did not check this one on my phone. On my browser on my desktop, it's not pulling in the AI assistant for whatever reason, but I can go directly to Gemini, which is what I've done. And for externalities anyway, it more or less gave the same information. So I wanted to see what it's going to do for price elasticity of demand as comparison, I guess, with what I did previously. So, okay, here's what it says. So what is price elasticity of demand? It measures how sensitive the quantity demanded of a good or service is to changes in its price. Yep, that's right. In simpler terms, it tells us how much the demand for something changes when the price goes up or down. Yeah, that's absolutely it. Key concepts: elastic demand. If a small change leads to a large change in demand, it's elastic. Yeah. 10% increase in price for soda causes a 20% decrease in sales. Demand is elastic. Yeah, and we compute the elasticity to be minus 2.0, or an absolute value would be 2. Inelastic demand: if a change in price has little effect on demand, the demand is inelastic. So for essential goods like medicine, even if the price doubles, people still need to buy them. Sure, yeah, though we don't necessarily doesn't necessarily need to be doubling. And this isn't wrong, this isn't the best way to explain or to give an example for inelastic demand or to even explain how the price concept works. So the more obvious thing to say would be, for example, if a 20% increase in a brand of medicine caused a 10% decrease in sales, right? So here they had 10% increase in brand of soda caused a 20% decrease in sales. The quantity changes in the numerator, the price changes in the denominator of a fraction. That's why I said this was then an elasticity of -2. If we flip those numbers, so we'd say a 20% increase in the price of soda, that would go in the denominator, caused a 10% decrease in sales, that'd go in the numerator. We compute an elasticity of -1/2, which would be inelastic. So that would be better than what they gave in an example here. Though it's not wrong, it's just a little bit misleading. One of the reasons why I bothered to give that long explanation is lots of times students will say mistakenly that if the price changes and the quantity changes, demand is elastic, and if the price changes and quantity doesn't change, then it's inelastic. And they will, which is for perfect inelasticity, that'd be correct. But they'll miss cases like the example I just gave, on the grounds that if price rises 20% and quantity falls 10%, quantity changed. And then they might wrongly say the demand is elastic, when actually it's inelastic. And the mistake is sometimes people will just say, well, if price changes and quantity changes, that's elasticity, when really that's just the law of demand. Elasticity is how much does price cause a change in quantity, or how large of a change in quantity results from a given change in price. It's the relative magnitudes, the proportional change between price and quantity that's the key, which is why I gave the example that I did. Unit elastic: this is the middle ground where a change in price leads to an equal percentage change in demand. That's right. Also, that's an elasticity of 1. That's the midpoint of the demand curve. That's also the revenue maximizing point. But they didn't need to say all that stuff here, so that's fine. Demand for luxury cars is generally elastic. Okay. Demand for medicine is generally inelastic. Okay. Why is price elasticity important? To optimize revenue, manage costs, understand market dynamics. Yeah, I mean, you want to know something about the responsiveness of price changes, and so you want to know what's going to happen or be able to predict like what's going to happen for a given price change to demand for your product. And so this is all right. This is, I mean, at least this isn't incorrect. So, and here's that numerate exam. I've not clicked through that. I don't know exactly what this is doing. So, but so what did I ask? I asked for Explain the concept of price elasticity of demand and provide an example. What if I ask for cross elasticity? This is actually, cross elasticity is actually probably more useful for a company for thinking about their own pricing decisions. Cross elasticity is going to tell us something about how responsive is the demand for one product to changes in the price of something else. And so it really matters if you're thinking about changing prices and how it's going to affect your own array of product offerings, and or how changes in your price or your rival's price can affect your demand or your rival's demand. And so let's see, what's cross elasticity? It measures the quantity demanded of one good changes the response to the price of another. Yeah. How related the goods are in the eyes of consumers? Yep, that's right. Substitutes, if the price of one good increases, demand for its substitute will increase. Yes. And we'll get a positive cross elasticity, which is what they should have said, but they didn't. Complements, if the price of one good increases, the demand for the complement will decrease. Yes. And we'll get a negative cross elasticity, which they should have said, but they didn't. For unrelated goods, the price of one good doesn't have any effect on the demand for the other. True. And we'd say the elasticity is 0 or close to 0. Usually when we teach cross elasticity at the principles level, we only care about the sign. So if it's positive, we have substitutes. If it's negative, we have complements. If it's 0, they're unrelated or independent goods. I think that's missing an opportunity. At the MBA level, we'll pay attention to the magnitude as well. And I think actually all students should pay attention to the magnitude, because if you get a really large positive cross elasticity, that tells us we've got pretty responsive demand. And so those are really close substitutes. Customers are freely switching between them. Whereas if you had a small positive elasticity, those would be substitutes, but far less responsive, where demand's a little bit more inelastic. Same thing with complements. So for an example, if you had a really large and negative cross elasticity, we'd have really close complements. So that'd be something like two goods that are only ever used together. So maybe we think of something like ice cream and ice cream cones. And then if you had something with a smaller cross elasticity, those are two goods that could be used together, but wouldn't necessarily. So that'd be like pumpkin and pumpkin pie crust, because maybe you put a lot of other things in your pie besides pumpkin, like cherry or blueberries. And maybe you use your pumpkin not only to make pies, but also to make pumpkin bread or pumpkin muffins or something like that. Anyway, so the sign matters in terms of telling us, are they complements or substitutes? The magnitude matters in terms of telling us how closely related they are. And so actually that logic follows from the 0 cross elasticity when they're unrelated. Okay, so here's the examples. Okay, good. Yeah, so they do talk about the negative cross elasticity down here with coffee and creamer. Fine. Businesses use this for pricing strategies. Yeah, absolutely. For bundling, fine. Market analysis, fine. Yeah, this is okay. This is pretty good. And they've just pulled out a random collection of sites that they're citing. My goodness. I mean, I don't know. So sometimes their graphs will link out to, like university slide decks, like professors post something. And so those have actually been pretty good. The citations I've seen here, the sources and related content, maybe they're fine. I'm not going to click through them. Who knows what will go on there. But those, I would never recommend these as being the sources that you'd look to next. Look, if you need to find another source to get greater information about this stuff right here, what you got to do is go to Google and then select the other tab. You can choose like all, images, news. Like none of those are useful for this, but if you click books, you might be able to find a free preview of a textbook that will give you this information. And that would be better than clicking through some random website that Gemini thought was a good idea. Okay, so income elasticity. Income elasticity measures how the quantity demanded changes in response to change in consumer income, tells how sensitive the demand is to changes in income level. That's all correct. Normal goods, these are ones where demand increases as income increases. That's right. It'd give us a positive income elasticity. For inferior goods, this is where demand falls as income rises. That would give us a negative income elasticity. Yes, we can further differentiate between necessity and luxury goods. More typically for necessity goods, we'd have an income elasticity between 0 and 1. And for luxury goods, we'd have an income elasticity greater than 1, which of course indicates are they pretty responsive in the case of luxuries with an income elasticity greater than 1, or pretty unresponsive to changes in income, like necessities you're going to buy regardless of your income level, food, clothing, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is all correct. They could be a little bit more precise sharing the information about the numbers that I just did, but you know, let's see. Smartphones are a normal good. Fine. Could be a luxury. Fine. Why is income elasticity important? Forecast demand. Sure. If there's like some fluctuation in the macroeconomic cycle, so if there's going to be a recession, that's really important for a company to be able to determine are they selling a normal or an inferior good so that they know what to do with their production plans. Yeah, everything else here is reasonable. Not, I mean, this is, I don't know. So this is at least not incorrect. So I would say, at least from what I've seen, maybe you could play around with a little bit more to get more examples. But at least in terms of like a refresher on the concepts, this information's pretty good. All right, so I'll go ahead and I will go ahead and conclude here. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you next time.